We have a little feedback. Feedback. Hey, Charles.
What is that noise? Oh, okay.
That noise is your chair. That noise is your chair. You need some like 3-in-1 oil, some 50-weight gauze pads, and some ball bearings.
Well, I definitely need some WD-40. I don't know about the rest of that nonsense. But
you know what that's from, don't you? From Fletch.
What's that from, Ash?
You've ever seen the movie Fletch? You probably were a kid when that came out with Chevy Chase.
No.
All right, it's a good one to watch. All right,
we got a lot of feedback.
A lot of feedback?
Yeah, for some reason.
All right, got it. Did that fix it?
Nope. Echo now.
How about now?
Yep.
A little bit better.
Still have an echo.
We're almost there. How about that?
Spot on.
Echo.
Nope, good.
All right. Well, cool. Great to have you. Great to have you on. So this is Cutting Edge with Ashley from Materials Exchange. We are the only digital B2B marketplace educating the market on movements in the market, real-time pricing, where you can come buy, click sell, match, free to sign up. You only pay a fee if you actually buy or sell something, and you can look at prices for free. What kind of endorsement is that, right, Charles? And this is Charles De La Torre from Industrial Forest Products. Man, myth, and legend, taking lumber and turning it into value-added products one stick at a time. So, hey, man, welcome. Crazy market last week. We talked on the phone today. Basically said you're still digging out from last week. I mean, like, literally, you moved a lot of product, have done a lot of product. Your saw time is booked right out. What have you seen going on last week, and what do you see coming into this week so far on Monday?
I think people would rather have fiber than not. FOMO is still real, and I think it's valid. With everything that's going on in the world and ship delays as far as Euro imports and rail car shortages out of Canada and so on and so forth, it really puts not even a bottleneck at this point. I don't even know how it's worse than that. As far as when people can actually put their hands on product without having people at job sites or manufacturing facilities or wall panel plants standing around with their hands in their pockets. Makes it real interesting from our standpoint. I know when we spoke last week, we were quoting the end of the week of 3/14. We're sold out almost a full first week of April.
I was going to ask you how far people are going out, and the thing that I've noticed in this market. So let's first touch on the FOMO. I was talking to a few people this morning that import wood, a handful of them. There's some vessels coming into Florida that are already sold and going to ship out like with 150, 200 trucks on them. So I know some of the ports were a little congested, but most of that wood in those ports are sold, right? Talking to, Riley the other day, he's trying to ship out 20 trucks a day out of one of his reloads in the Northeast, and he can only get 5 out a day. So, he's doing whatever he can to get stuff moving. So the theme is the same. People used to be concerned with 2 weeks or sooner, 3 weeks or sooner wood. People are buying out 2 months into this now. And, and one thing that I'm grateful for, a lot of people aren't complaining if you're a few weeks late on something. They're like, yeah, do the best you can, right? So not everybody is like that, but a lot of people are, right?
I was going to say, we might need to switch customers. Because we're catching it pretty hard, and I'm sure we're not the only one.
Well, I'm kind of putting that out there to a couple of people I'm late on, and I'm hoping they're watching this show. So I did something different today. I got the brain up behind me, so that's our one of our modules where we have a big screen up there that looks at all the live incoming and outgoing trades. So the trading floor, you can see everybody sitting here and our team. Nick, Jory, Ryan, Doge, we all monitor that. So when we hear the chainsaw go off or watch the different stuff, we can all see everything's going on. So it's kind of fun being in a tech company doing that. So uncertainty, right? We've got, I wouldn't say, we've got a crazy market. I think we're probably in for a lot of uncertainty, but I don't think things are going to ever be as bad as they seem going forward or as good as they seem, if that makes sense. When you look at the the ability to what we can actually build homes at versus what we can actually complete. That puts a little bit of kink in the pipeline a little bit. Are you noticing any of that? I mean, you're selling the snot out of lumber, right? But how is that pushing into other things, cabinets, all that other stuff that's hard to get?
Well, I think now it's the mentality's got to change, right? So you've got supply chain issues across the board as far as drying in and finishing a house with a front door and locks at work and windows and doors and toilets and sinks and so on and so forth. It's almost like the mentality's got to change to a checklist, right? So you have this, you're waiting on this. How do you maximize the logistics supply chain on one material across a development? Is really what we're seeing. We're seeing some big national and regional guys come in and want to buy on our level versus buying from the retail level for the very specific reason. They can rent a Moffett or a Lull or whatever and drop units per house. So they know they can keep their framers moving forward, which puts them a step closer in the process. Now, one thing that Riley touched on as far as, time to finish, yeah, that's increased exponentially. But if you're a builder and you've got contracts and you show somebody an empty lot and they say, oh, well, I can't, they say, well, why don't I have anything done? And you say, well, I can't get a tub. Okay. If I was that guy with that contract, I'd say, well, I signed a contract. You've got earnest money or whatever the case may be. We're already pre-qualified. I want to see progress. So you're going away from strictly a supply chain objective to kind of a mental standpoint, right? And progress. Because a lot of people are depending on this for other things that are going on in the market, right? If you've sold your house and you're waiting on this house to finish, that's going to throw a kink in the whole deal. Everything's contingent. And if you can't move into your house or you don't see progress, you can't update the person on the other side of the table. So
maybe instead of getting the Victorian claw club or tub, maybe they can go for the double soaker tea for two tub instead, right?
Yeah, that's another way to look at it. What are you willing to sacrifice to get it done and have a house to live in? But completions are going to be the driver. I think, I don't think I know because the data tells us permits are up, permits are strong. So that tells you that future demand is definitely going to be there. The question lingering in everybody's head is how is supply going to catch up to that? And is that supply going to, I don't know. Sorry, I got caught off by Brett Walls' comment in all capital letters. I was trying to read it at the same time, and I lost my train of thought.
We'll get back to Brett's. But anybody that wants to comment or ask questions to Charles, right? Please put him up in the bleep blopper over here.
Yeah, but it makes it real interesting because it's not just a supply issue from a southeastern southern yellow pine mill that cuts 200 or 300 million foot a year. It goes all the way down to logger, and loggers are moving slower because they're aging out and younger people aren't coming in. So it takes longer for sawmills to get logs. And I think you and Riley and Beamer touched on log decks and how those have kind of influxed and defluxed up and down. I don't know if that's the right word, but up and down.
I knew what you meant.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
In Canada and what those impacts have done. So that's the question. When will supply catch up? Because if it doesn't catch up and demand stays somewhat where it's at, you've got majors that know how to play this game now.
Well, let's
roll into market's willing to bear.
Let's roll into some of the uncertainties there. So rail versus truck. Everybody asked the question. Okay, up in Canada, there's two majors that actually announced curtailments during one of the best returning markets ever because they can't get fiber out of the yard on rail cars. And the question is, okay, if these big railroads, you've had a lot of consolidation on railroads and they've had great earnings, right? So why can't they get cars back to the yard? And a person called me yesterday and told me, hey, I've heard you talk about this. One thing you need to think about is you had COVID, so everybody had reasons why they couldn't make it to work at a railroad. You've got all this different, let's say, drug testing and everything that goes on in the world now. And it's more, it potentially, their thought was it could be more of a lack of people able to get the power to the cars to get it to this. So basically it could be a power problem, right? Because this has gone on for 6 or 7 years. So why during this time of the year, when the cycle time goes out, it has all the time, why weren't people prepared for it? I think there's a lot of things that we don't see that happen where you don't have enough labor for whatever reason it is, right? And they can't get the power to hook up to these cars and get them back and get people in there. So that, and then you got the situation going on in Europe where Russia does ship a certain amount of wood to China and to Europe, and there's logs that come out of Russia, and I'm sure some of those make it over here and finished lumber. So that's an uncertainty. What's gonna happen there, right? So we're kind of playing this strange game. Personally, I think that when people make curtailments during a high market, that's more bearish than bullish, but I could be wrong on that, right?
Well, it depends on what their reasoning is and whether it's factual or not. I think the rail car issue is tangible for a
It
lot of
is.
reasons, but mainly because we've been doing it the same way for 100 years. I mean, let's call
Yeah.
it what it is, right? There's
Yeah.
got to be a way to automate that process, but there's a lot of that stuff driven by unions. So I mean, you just kind of got to deal with what you're given.
No doubt. No doubt. Like I said, it can be a labor issue, right?
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I see it every day, so I would agree with you more than the average bear, honestly.
Let's handle Brett's question here. If the lumber is actually bought ahead, won't the buying faucet turn completely off at some point in timber? I think the answer, Brett, is I was looking at Riley's survey, and it looks like he asked the question of three different things. Will we go to a new high? 56% of the people that answered that so far said yes. And then it goes down to 26% said we're at the high. And then watch out below, we're going below 1,000. It was 20%. So that's interesting. So I guess what I would, my personal opinion, saying to Brett is everybody right now, when a market is going up, never has enough lumber, right? And that lumber is staged somewhere in the pipeline. When it all shows up like it did last May and June, I guess we'll have to make a decision there because I think people are pretty far bought ahead. But I mean, eventually these numbers are probably unsustainable at these levels, right? I don't know if we're ever going to go back to cost of production levels, the thing that I always look at, right? But
there's no
but I think these high numbers are probably unsustainable. Now, for the next 30 days, are they sustainable? Sure, they could be, like you said, because they still have a FOMO. But I'll let you take a crack at Brett's question.
Yeah, at some point it's going to crash, but the question is how far is it going to peel off? And I mean, you take into consideration what happened last year, and you had a market that changed 45-50% in 3 weeks. It's a monumental change. But I mean, if you, like, for example, I mean, 2 before 116 and 5/8, we've sold what out of them, and nobody can get enough, and those prices just keep clicking higher and higher as the day goes by. Yeah, the faucet will turn off, but the question that I would pose is who will be ready for that? And I think people in our shoes that dabble in the wholesale and the manufacturing side can see it a little bit more prevalently than some of the other guys that are strictly wholesale for a couple of reasons, but mainly because we can manipulate and understand what our saw time and true lead times are going to be. And if you've got guys in Canada that are quoting late March, early April delivery, and we're in the same boat, you've got 30 to 45, maybe even 60 days to where you have price sustainment, if not going higher. But on the same token, a $200 clip in the market at these levels, what does that really mean?
No, that's a good point relative to what we're used to. I mean, look at historically the lumber market. We always say moved $135, 1,000 in a whole year. Do you know what it moved last year? A friend, Kip sent me something that we're gonna talk about this on Thursday. It was $1,400. It's a 1 year move. Do you know what that is? $1,400 is basically 93 cents a foot on a 2x4.
Yep.
That's the price swing that we had last year when we're used to 130. We have a 10x price swing, and that's just hard to handle. So question from one of the users, and maybe some of the LinkedIn people and people on YouTube can answer yes or no when they see this, or tell us where they're seeing mills at right now. What LinkedIn user asked, will the mills sell 4 to 6 weeks out? So if people can comment in there what they're seeing on order file right now and how far out mills are selling. I mean, we have some prompt Southern Pine listed today from mills, but we also have mills listing, 2 to 3 weeks out. I think when you're talking 4 to 6 weeks out, that's more carload mills out of Quebec, I think, and Ontario, and I think those are shipping a little easier. But if you're over in BC, I don't know yet, but I'm guessing some of those mills may be there already. Do you know, Charles?
I would venture to say I agree with you. They're probably already there for a lot of reasons, but the Southern Yellow Pine, Southern Yellow Pine, you can't really apply the same metrics because a majority of Southern Yellow Pine wood goes 200, 300, 400 miles historically around that mill, right? So, right. I mean, they're not, and once again, historically, Southern Yellow Pine is sold a little bit different, traded a little bit different than spruce, whether it's Canadian or Euro. So there's different methodologies that come into play and who's willing to sell what, when, and how.
Well, if looking at if you just I've looked at satellite photography. You look at a mill in the Pacific Northwest or BC, it's 200 acres because they have to build a log deck. You go down to the south, it's 20 to 50 acre sites, right? Because they're buying wood. They can buy wood all year long, and they can feather the clutch if they want to during that time period. You're right. I think it's a 200-mile radius. Most of the wood ships at a Southern Yellow Pine mill.
No, that's true. I mean, 300 is probably stretching it, but once again, it depends on what you own that.
But not in this market. If a mill has something, they'll ship it 1,000 miles, right?
On the low end.
On the low end, it's insane the moves we see. So you brought up a good point. I can always make an idea of what I think, but you're actually buying and selling. So what you do really matters because you see it on the day in. And so what are you doing with all this volatility right now? I mean, think about it. If you used to buy 10 trucks of something for a couple $100,000 and now it's, $700,000, like what do you do to, I mean, a Southern Yellow Pine truck now that used to be, let's look here.
High end, $14,000. Call it
$14,000. What are you paying on grade? What's just to give the public an idea of what that difference is now?
It's 2.5 times that probably.
Yeah. So $7,000. So if you got something that you're paying $1,500 on now, I mean you're at $30,000 $30,000 plus dollars. How do you manage that with a growing business like yours?
Very, very carefully.
Right.
I mean, it causes a lot of sleepless nights, honestly, because there's so many variables. And then you've got species against species opportunities and substitutions that we like to sell on. And we're active in so many different markets. It doesn't solely go back to a $40,000 Southern Yellow Pine truck. It goes back to, well, you can't find 2x6 10-foot in spruce, or you can't find 2x4 14 in Southern Yellow Pine. So how do you sub it and how do you solve the problem? That's where the real ingenuity and the legwork kind of comes in. But mitigating the risk, I mean, you can hedge it and you can swap it and you can do all the things that you want to do, but you're never going to be 100% covered. I mean, let me take that back. There are some people that do that, but we don't operate that way. So the stuff that is hedged or swapped, there's a certain percentage that we stick with, no matter where the pricing levels are, to ensure that there's some sort of profit basis in it, no matter what. But at the same time, once again, you still have not only us, but end users, truss guys, pallet guys, yards, dealers, everybody's still waiting on wood, whether it's Southern Yellow Pine or spruce. So you've got $1,500 wood that's waiting to be shipped, or it's just coming in and it was supposed to be here 2.5 weeks ago. So it depends on how you go to market and how you sell and what volumes you sell. And I think that's where we've gained market share, because there's a lot of people that haven't aggressively sold into it. And one major did a really, really good job with the dip that happened in January in the Southern Yellow Pine side, to where they didn't see any of it. I mean, I'm talking none of it. Maybe minus $150.
They had sold out far enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha. You froze up there for a second. I was waiting for you. There you go. So, hey, question for you: 2x4, 116 and 5/8. So that goes into 10-foot walls. Obviously, what is the big pull behind 116 5/8 now, and why? Why is that a big? There's got to be a reason for that. Is there some special type of wall being built, or is there something?
I think it's a consumer-based idea, right? But it's also seasonal depending on where you're building it at. So what we're seeing is that it's kind of a preference thing, but I think it also goes into engineering and design. And typically, historically speaking, 116s are cheaper than 104s.
Right.
So there may have been a play there, and it obviously sunk like the
Yeah.
Titanic to save
Yeah.
money based on where 104s were, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's some plays as far as municipalities and what's allowed and so on and so forth.
Right on. That makes sense. So you and I chatted about something. I had an email over or last Friday for one of our shows said, "Hey, I'd like you guys to talk more about industrial sales, and not low grade, but selling to people that don't build homes, but build pellets or crates or do everything different, everything besides residential or multifamily construction." And I think you actually live in that world too quite a bit. So what are you seeing in that industrial sales? Are you seeing any trends there in ply? And the person that asked this is was a Brazilian plywood manufacturer and was asking questions about what are you seeing as far as pull goes now and forward on different products.
Well, I mean, as far as panels go, I mean, if you can find Casper, you may as well call it Ghostbusters and take him, because I mean, it just kind of is what it is, whether it's mill cert or it's on grade. And when you get into the industrial guys, everybody's kind of got a different way of doing business and the quality of product they put out in the market. But I can tell you this from our perspective, cut stock and component business, because we do a lot of trim work anyway. That's a big deal, because we go back to the labor piece. Whereas a lot of these bigger pallet guys, they used to have a mini sawmill. They'd buy timbers and they'd reman and gang saw and rip it and so on and so forth. But they're having to reallocate that labor to put together their finished good or run an automatic line because somebody else didn't show up. So there's a demand for components that's tangible now, that you would have to find the right guy that understood the value before. Now it's a necessity.
Could you decipher the Casper the ghost calling Ghostbusters for our Brazilian friends? And for me too.
Well, I mean, if you can find panels in the open market at realistic pricing, you may as well buy it.
Because yeah, right on. Okay.
Sorry. That was my generation play on words, not yours, Ash. Sorry, I apologize.
I saw the original Ghostbusters, not the remake.
Oh, makes it even worse that you didn't get it.
No, man, I understand that. That's why I wanted to learn as a I don't know if I'm a boomer or I'm one generation below that, right? I didn't want to. That was good though. I love it. So this was cool. I appreciate it. Charles, what do you see going into the week? How are your sales starting out for a Monday so far? People kind of like.
I mean, you've got inquiries, but you got a lot of people that are waiting and trying to see what's going to happen. But we see how that plays out by every Wednesday, and everybody's kind of forced back into the market. So I don't know.
Yeah, I want to. So we always talk about different trades of the week. So Friday we had a trade. A load go basically all the way from Birmingham, or a couple loads to all the way out to Colorado, right? I mean, and this is on OSB. Think about the move that's making. It's basically taking a route going by a whole bunch of production facilities all the way out into the. I guess that's not the West, that's the mountain states. But it's nuts that you're seeing these kind of movements all over the place, which means volatility, a lot of price movements. Misallocations, dislocated inventory in certain places where there's other, and I think the market's trying to figure it out right now, and it's really all over the place.
Well, once again, a lot of that wood's already sold, so passing a production facility that has no product, it's kind of a moot point. It's like passing a gas station and not needing gas.
But that's how things get back in line, right? Arbitrage, right?
Yep.
They markets seek their own level. So Charles at Industrial Forest Products, if you want to get a hold of Charles, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email cdelatorre@ifpwood.com.
cdelatorre@ifpwood.com. We'll throw it up there. There it is. If you look down there. Is that the right way or down there? I guess I got to do the opposite.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. cdelatorre@ifpwood.com. And if you want to come to Materials Exchange, it's MX Lumber. There you go, and mxlumber.com to sign up. There's my email address. But if you come to mxlumber.com, hit the registration button, put your information in. One of us will get a hold of you and get you online buying and selling lumber and looking at prices and seeing transparent market prices and in 24 hours. So, Charles, I appreciate you taking the time today during your busy day. As always, really good insight. And if anybody wants a copy.
Let me add this though. I mean, as far as MX goes, I mean, the data that's provided, not only on a free basis, but for some of these podcasts and I guess episodes, for lack of a better way to describe it. Yeah. There's a lot of data that people can harvest to really understand some sort of direction outside of the historic way of the business, right? That marketplace price transparency can educate a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and kind of give you an insight on the market as a whole, including those arbitrage opportunities. So, I mean, I think what y'all are doing is huge.
We're like Ghostbusters.
I gotta go. Ash, it's been fun.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Bye.